Okay, everybody, I'll keep this last part brief. We're kind of toward the end of this, and I think you get the idea. I think you got in class when we talked about this in class, some of you were noting the whole issue of like dependence versus independence. And to Gordon Wood, it's that concept of dependence that the colonists are moving away from, and how and in what way they feel like they're doing something different. And it has to do with, like even today, we talk about like political corruption or the relationship between corporations and politics. Maybe we're putting our fingers on some things that feel like a unfair version of privilege in some cases, and so we know that exists, in our society. And so maybe that's what the colonists are kind of, considering is some of this, issue. And Gordon Wood, talks about this idea of genius and, people who are in this kind of Republican framework, that they are now kind of there with honor and interest. You are there like a status to have, qualities. He kind of notes that people are like a natural aristocracy, is the word Gordon Wood uses in paragraph 17. They become what Jefferson called a natural aristocracy, liberally educated, enlightened gentlemen of character. That there is, in a sense, what he says, this frustrated talent. So people who had talent that couldn't like do anything about it because they weren't born in the right family, merit had been denied. So then like the colonies becomes a space where there is now kind of a, people's children can grow up to be anything they want, right? So there is, in a sense, this idea that the Enlightenment is not something that's going to be hereditary. It's going to be based on, intellectualism, talent, and ways that people apply it and use it. Okay. And he also, Gordon Wood, suggests it's hard for us to understand, how much of a burden hereditary aristocracy would be. And we forget like how much family names might mean or something like that. But he kind of notes that, and he gives some examples, how much, there was like offices of government given to father and son, and, how this became something really important. And then he also describes that this assault on the monarch's bonds also affect relationships within a family. So there's some connection here to Gary Nash, because Gordon Wood will say that maybe revolution men lose some of their control over their wives and of their property. Wives continue to remain dependent on their husbands, but they did gain greater autonomy, some legal recognition of their rights to hold property separately, to divorce or whatever. And, he makes a case that after the revolution, states, not colonies anymore, but states with their own legislatures will write laws that are going to be more favorable to women, right? So that's maybe a debatable thing, and he concedes that in paragraph 20, but he does suggest that this idea of, kind of there is a, white males found it increasingly impossible to accept any dependent status whatsoever. And of course, he's talking about white males here. And he's saying like indentured servitude is going to disappear in the colonies. It's not really going to be a thing anymore. And, I might counter argue some of that is because, slavery, racialized slavery has replaced indentured servitude, and there's economic incentives for that. But, this is really what he's talking about, white servants refusing to call their employers master. So, some of this is about the way people see themselves and the way that individuals kind of, have a relationship to people who are above them. Masters becoming less patriarchs, more employers, cash payments of wages are replacing maybe the relationship that used to exist more in the feudal system. So like fluctuating mobility of workers. So, that's, what we're talking about with like some degree of social mobility. Gordon Wood makes a case for that. Okay. And so the changing relationship between people and society, rather than like lord and vassal, you're getting like employer and employee. Okay. In paragraph 24, he talks a little bit about the hypocrisy of slavery. And he also says that there was some improvement, and he noted how conspicuous Black slavery had become. So he kind of makes a case, it doesn't go away, but the idea of people attacking it in kind of the time maybe after the revolution becomes more important. So, he kind of makes a case. And this is probably a space where you could debate, but he says colonies had taken slavery more or less for granted. They didn't really have to, kind of defend it or criticize it or any of those things. But he ultimately says that now Americans recognize that slavery in a republic of workers is an aberration, a peculiar institution. If they had to and wanted to maintain slavery, white society wanted to maintain slavery, they would have to do this in a way that was racialized and anthropological. And ultimately, he argues that some of the, kind of movement to some of the forces that will lead to the U.S. Civil War come from this. Okay, so in any case, that's that reading. I hope that helps, and just wanted to go over the argument. And then one thing to give you a heads up for the quiz, because something that you can prepare for this reading and the Wim Klooster reading, which was handed out in hard copy, and I will put it on Schoology for you right now. The other reading is the Gary Nash piece. You're looking at 3 different historians, so a natural space for a question would be to connect some of those historians together. So look at those sources. Okay? Be well.